Good day, everyone. Good day, and another wonderful day with a wonderful artist, Freja. This one may be a saucy one today. I'm going to let this lady introduce herself because I don't think I can handle the fire when speaking about her. So, Freja, welcome. It is nice to see you today. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. And thanks for having me on here. It's really exciting to speak to you.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm excited, but I'm not sure if it's for the right reasons. But listen, Freja, just let us know who you are, what you're about, and what is your business at the moment, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, so my name is Freya Njorden, and my business is, the brand name is The Sensualist, and that's a blanket term that a little bit represents what my ideology is. I work with individuals and couples to help them have better sex lives. That's really vague, but it means that people who are struggling with their libido, their erotic response, relating to other people, relating to their partner, couples who've been in a rut, sexual trauma, sexual dysfunction, and people who want something more than what they have. A lot of people out there do have a good sex life, but they know there's more out there that they could be having. So I help them with that. And, you know, the tools that I use, you could call me a coach, but I'm an erotic hypnotherapist. And hypnotherapist, I have a background in tantra and erotic massage, professional domination. I'm a compulsive studier. So I've been learning lifelong about the mind-body connection. And when I learn things, I bring them to the table.
Wow. So where did your journey start for you to actually go down this route? Because obviously you've helped many a person. Obviously you wanted to help many a person, but where did it first begin?
It was a long and organic progression because I tend to do what I like and what I want. I have to be interested by my work and feel compelled by it. Over 20 years ago, I was making bagpipes in a shop.
Okay.
And
that's interesting. Okay. I'm interested in where you're going to go with this.
I was making bagpipes and Irish flutes, and I was also in a band, a bagpipe band. And I was one of the drummers had a migraine, and I was massaging the drummer's shoulders. I said, "Sit down, let me see if I can get that out." And he said, "Oh, you're really strong. Your hands are great. You should do this as a job." And I had never had a massage at that age in my life. And I was like, "You can massage for a living? Like, you can actually work doing massage?" And something went off in my brain. So I went to massage school and became a massage therapist. And I loved it. Simultaneously, I was young, I was married. I married my first boyfriend as a teenager, and I was obsessed with sex. So on the side, I was studying everything to do with sexuality, sensuality, ancient sexual practices, Taoist practices. And on one hand, I had my therapeutic massage practice, and kind of on the side, I was learning all of these things. And my clients would spill all of their beans to me all the time on the table. And according to, massage therapy rules and stuff like that, it's inappropriate to talk about people's sex lives in a therapeutic setting on the massage table. It's just, you know what I mean? Those two things are not supposed to overlap. But it felt normal to me, and I was always offering them advice. So I started a side practice. I created a new name for myself, which I kept, by the way. I just decided to leave my old life behind and everything about it eventually. But I started a side practice where I was doing this full body energetic massage. It didn't include orgasm, but it was fully nude, and I massaged every part of the body just kind of incidentally and getting the energy flow, and it was beautiful. And people loved it. They'd be crying on the table. It felt very healing. I loved it so much, I just kept going in that direction. And eventually I was like, what would I do all day, every day if I wasn't being paid for it? And it was talk about sex. And it was working with sexuality in all arenas. So I thought, okay, I'm going to leave my old practice behind and just focus on this. And that's where I got into hypnosis and all kinds of other things.
Wow, that sounds amazing because especially when the rule set is that you can't talk about sex and massage and all those other things together. That's a no-no. But what made it a situation where it was so natural for you to do so without crossing that line? Was it a situation that you knew that you had to be professional? So you knew the separation and that was a natural way of doing things. I mean, how did you feel at that point, knowing that it was a no-no in the industry to do that?
There was a dissonance there. So people would start talking about their relationships. And the way my brain works is when a subject comes in, my brain kind of pings across to everything I know or have heard about it,
Uh-huh.
like present and past. And so I would say, well, why don't you check out this book? Or why don't you look up this subject or look up this kind of thing? I didn't necessarily talk explicitly about sexuality. It was just they wanted to tell me about their relationships and what was going on, and they felt comfortable doing so. So I was like, try this. And I thought about it for a long time, where I didn't like how I had a lot of male clients because I do deep tissue work. I do really, really good deep tissue work. So I got a lot of athletes and men who wanted somebody who were strong enough to get in there, but who was a woman because they didn't want to be massaged by a man. And what I didn't like was the attitude in massage therapy school and in the things that it's like, whoa, it's not that kind of a massage. Of course it's not. And they weren't angling for that.
Mm,
But this sort of almost demonizing somebody for something they didn't do because the subject of sexuality was so perilous.
mm,
I'm comfortable with sexuality. Every single human, even asexual people, deal with the subject of sexuality in their lives.
mm.
And to sweep it under the table just makes it more of a problem. So I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, and I see where the power lies with you because you have a natural way of separating, still being professional, but also you have a passion for that. But I suppose the reason why there's a lot of people that have a problem with mixing the two is because there's a lot of people that really can't separate the two. Does that make sense? Is your experience
Yeah.
showing you that? There's a lot of people that
Oh,
really,
absolutely.
is it like a taboo?
Absolutely. You know what? One more thing. This just slipped my mind. When I graduated massage therapy school, I was like 8 months pregnant, and I moved to Germany. So I went to school in New York, I moved to Germany, and then, I was having babies, and then I started working for myself because I was kinda stuck at home with these little babies, and, when I had a little bit of time, I started massaging people who spoke English in my general area,
Uh-huh.
moms from the kindergarten or people who were coming through town on business or something like that. So I was in a different environment than somebody who's working at a clinic. I wasn't using a registered massage therapy number. I
Okay.
wasn't working for an organization. I had more flexibility because it was just me, like just me in my spare room, or I would go and do out calls. So I had more leeway that way, which
Mm.
gave me license to kind of talk about what I wanted versus, yeah, sorry, can't talk about that.
So it's a situation that you used your own space. So it was your own rules.
Mhm.
You did what was comfortable to you. That
Yes.
made people feel comfortable because of that. And so you found a system that worked for you. Did you ever teach anyone, knowing that a lot of people have problems with separating the rule set? Did you show anyone on the way? Did you show this is how you interact with people, or did you ever think about teaching anyone?
Other professionals?
Yeah.
Not other massage therapy professionals. What I have done is people who wanted to do independent work, I
Mhm.
would let them know this is because it was a lot of trial and error to come up with a system that worked for me where people were going to adhere to my rules, where I didn't have to deal with the things I didn't want to deal with. Because of course, if you're a woman working on your own, working on bodies, there is going to be a significant portion of people who are thinking, okay, what can I get away with?
Yeah.
And now in Germany, I never had that problem. And I think it's because Germans are very literal. If you say, I do this, I don't do that, they take you at face value. When I moved to
Interesting.
Canada 12 years ago,
Yeah.
it was shocking. It was seriously shocking. And I had to go through a really big, long process of learning how to have boundaries and how to be really clear and how to not, I guess, how to recognize when people were bullshitting you.
Mm,
Because here, what I got for at least 1 or 2, maybe even 3 years was people thinking, "Okay, this is what she says she's doing. I'm gonna
mm,
come in and see what she says behind closed doors."
mm,
And people thinking that what I said wasn't what I meant. Maybe that was because I was younger. I'm in my 40s now. Nobody ever gives me a hassle. Nobody gives me a problem. Everybody respects my boundaries. Some of that is if I get one little hint of it in the beginning interactions in the email or in a client request, it's done. I
mm.
I I don't even I don't bother with people that I think may be a problem. So essentially, I have a system set up where everybody that comes in is amazing, or at least amazing to me.
Yeah.
In my little environment, I get treated the way I want to treat, and my interactions are great. But it took a while.
That must have been really difficult because obviously there was a culture difference within Germany. And when you're
Yeah,
used to that day in and day out, obviously everybody's like that, right? Because you're
yeah.
used to that day out and day in. So when you've gone somewhere else, as you said, um, I wouldn't say naive, because the thing is, if your experience was of a certain way, it was then shocking that the culture difference was so completely different. You had to go through that learning curve.
There was a naivete though. I'm neurodivergent. I'm on the spectrum.
Okay,
I'm on the spectrum, and I have ADHD. And I have a tendency, like the auto response for me is to take things literally. When people say something to me, I take them at face value.
okay.
And I had to learn how to read people properly and see what was going on behind the mask or behind the facade, behind what they were actually saying or doing. And there was a naivety there and a shock value. And then there was also, I had to reform myself as a people pleaser.
Mm,
So not wanting to offend somebody, not wanting to upset somebody, not wanting somebody to feel rejected in some way, shape, or form. And
okay.
that actually was the biggest struggle for me, was moving from being a people pleaser to being a self pleaser because I want to help people, but not at the expense of me.
So have you always been a people's pleaser before that, obviously, that
Before.
come up to
Yeah.
that point? And so what, are we going back way back in the days, even when you was a child, teenager, way back in the
Yeah.
days, you've always been a people pleaser. So considering that you was a people pleaser for so long, how did you have the strength to be able to change that mindset? Because that's a complete extreme extremity, actually, from one extreme to another.
Mhm.
Always pleasing people because you don't want to hurt them, etc. And then from a personality of, it is what it is, this is what I mean, and this is what I say. What transition, what made you, and what did you put in place to turn from pleasing to just saying it as it was?
It was a complex combination of real life, like my real life relationships and the dynamics going on in my real life, and my business requiring me to change. If I wanted to be happy, if I wanted to feel internally satisfied, healthy, not struggling, I knew that I had to change what I was doing. And it's all very well to point the finger at other people and say, "You're not treating me right." But what's the common denominator? It's me. So I'm the one that has to elicit the behavior from other people. And if they're not somebody who can treat me the way I want to be treated, whether it's paying me the rates that I feel I deserve, or interacting with me in a certain way, or respecting my boundaries, or
Mm,
respecting, I don't want to be hit on at work. I'm not here to be your girlfriend.
mm,
I'm not here to, oh, well, maybe we could have a conversation outside in a different environment. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to help within the context that I've defined that I'm available for. So, um, in my studies of neurolinguistic programming and hypnotherapy, I had a lot of personal work to do. Like I grew up as the scapegoat in a narcissistic family environment, which
okay,
was very abusive.
okay.
And that, along with my neurodivergence in school, I was bullied severely for my entire school career. It was a nightmare. I hated it. I couldn't wait to get out, which is
Mm,
why I got married as a teenager to a controlling person, a very controlling and critical person. And I was chronically feeling like a victim. I was chronically feeling like people were taking advantage of me, not treating me the way I wanted to be treated. And I knew I had to learn how to be different for
Mm.
that. So it was a necessity. I saw different therapists, but most of my stuff was actually in my training because I take a lot of courses. So when you take courses for healing other people,
Yeah.
you can't help but work on each other.
Mm.
And then I would work with my fellow students, and then when I had the money, I would see professionals for an issue that was bothering me. So I'm very, very proactive about my personal growth now as well. If something comes up and I see I have a sticking point as far as where I want to go in my career or where I want to go in my life, okay,
Mhm.
I go and get help for it. I don't
Mm.
sit there and say, oh, all these other people are so bad. People are wonderful if you give them the chance to be, but you have to train them how to be wonderful to you
Mm. I
or
tot-
let them go.
yeah, I know. I totally hear that. Also, what I'm hearing is that, way back in the days when you got married, I mean, if it was a situation that you was the scapegoat, right, and you and had difficulties in that way, then it was a situation you had similar things in your marriage. It was quite tough
Mhm,
and
mhm.
controlled because you hadn't got to that stage yet, as you've done so later on, where you thought, you know what, I'm going to take control. You hadn't got to that stage yet, and that must have been really difficult for when you transition from school life into your married life, and brought, can I say, the baggage from one stage to another into your married life. And obviously it's just grew from there. Did you not know at that time something was wrong when you was married and think something needed to be changed? And
I knew.
you
I
did?
knew. When I was a teenager, I was approached by, so I took an entrepreneurship class in high school, which I don't even remember. But the one thing I do remember, there was a boy in class who presented to the class when Amway, do you remember Amway?
No, I don't.
So Amway was a really big multi-level marketing organization in the US and Canada,
Okay.
mostly the US, but they were huge. And when Amway switched over to their online business, they called it something else. They called it Quickstar. And a boy in my class did a Quickstar presentation to our class. And I was like, wow. So he came to my house and he did the presentation. You can make this much money and all that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, this makes so much sense to me. So I joined up. Now, like, I don't know anybody. I'm a teenager, right? Like, who am I going to sell stuff to? So it was an abysmal failure. But for several years, I had my upline. And one of the things you had to do was buy a weekly tape on self-improvement. So I was listening to these tapes. I was reading the books on self-improvement. And as a teenager, I knew I was messed up. I didn't know how to do relationships. Like, being on the spectrum, I didn't even know how to people. Like,
Mm.
I was socially awkward. I didn't understand how to interact with people properly. I was severely shy, social anxiety. Like, I didn't want to go out. So the only way that I would be in social occasions, like, I was in a band. I was in a bagpipe band, a military band, and we would drink our heads off.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only way I could sort of interact with people. So I knew that there was something. I don't want to put it that way, but I knew I had problems and I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to overcome them so that I could be a functioning human being.
That was
I
really
knew. Yeah, and with my relationship, I was chronically unhappy with my husband, but I didn't know what to do about it. So I was
mm,
looking for solutions. I was still very proactive. I wasn't sure where to look or how to look or what to do. And when that relationship dissolved, I was very stuck in that victim mindset.
mm-hmm.
He's not doing this. He's not. Oh my God, I must have been a nightmare to be with. I was a child. Like, I married him as a teenager. I was a child with ADHD. I was a mess. Like, I was so disorganized, passive aggressive. I didn't have people skills. I didn't know how to do relationships. Neither did he. He was young as well. So my perception now of what that relationship was is very different. Like, now I'm, 25 years later, is very different than it was when I was in it. And I can't blame him. If I was married to him, I wouldn't have wanted to be with me either. Like, I wouldn't have been very nice to me, and he tolerated the environment for a very long time, even though he wasn't very nice.
Mm.
So I left, but he was not participating either, right? One of us had to leave. And
I get that. And so you moved on and realized obviously something had to be done.
Yeah.
and you realize you wasn't happy more ways than one, not just your personal life, but business life. And that's how you came to the point, right, okay, why don't I do this for business? And you just try to make that change, going to Germany, Canada, and the change took place. Now, as that change took place, did you find it particularly hard after Canada, when, especially when you made the big, massive change where it all comes down to me, everything comes down to me? When that hit you, I've already asked a similar question, but was it particularly difficult to be consistent from when you made the change to
Yeah,
being, so the consistency was difficult?
very much so. Consistency is something that I've struggled with my entire life. Up
Hmm.
up until today, I have a problem with consistency. And I would say business-wise, the biggest struggle that I had was understanding what was necessary to have a business. Being good at what you do is not the same as running a good business.
Yeah.
And my focus for a very, very long time, I kept on thinking, if I could just find that thing that would make me even better at what I do, I would make enough money. I would make the kind of money I wanted to make.
Mm.
So I was compulsively and chronically taking many, many, many courses every single year, getting better and getting better and getting better at what I do, learning more skills. But that wasn't translating into making more money because I
Mm.
could still only see clients. I can only see so many people, right? And I can only do so much before I'm too tired to do more or whatever. And I get burnt out pretty easily. I put a lot of energy into the work that I do with people.
Mhm.
So eventually it clicked that, okay, this is not about getting better at what you do. This is getting better at running a business and learning how to structure business differently
Mm.
so that I can be more effective and see more people. And there was actually something really interesting, and it kind of upset me. I was a little offended the first time I heard it. There's an author named Frederick Dodson who has a lot of books on like esoteric books and energy books and personal health books. And something he said in one of his money books was, "Your income is reflective of how much you put out and help people in the world." And as my income was not very high, I was offended because I was like, all I do is help people. All
Mhm.
I do is give. Like I have a good effect on people's lives. Like I change their marriages. I change, if somebody has sexual trauma their whole life and they can't have an orgasm and they're afraid to be intimate and that changes, like their life has changed forever. So I was a little indignant and I heard it several times over several years and it finally registered in a way that felt good, really only recently. And it had to do with organizing what I'm putting out into the world in a way that can reach a broader audience.
Okay.
If if I help 50 people a year, that's a very small amount of people. If I and my income is going to reflect that, unless I'm charging, 10,000, 20,000, $30,000 per person, which I'm not. And if I can help 1,000 people, 100,000 people per year by changing the model of what I do,
Mm.
that's going to reflect in, it's what I'm putting out there on a bigger scale, and then it's going to reflect what's coming back to me. So that I think was an important thing too.
And you know what? And I hear you, and that's quite powerful, because the thing is, um, we do think we're helping people, and we are helping people, but it's the efficiency of how we help people, it's the outreach of how we help people. And and I find that amazing, because for you to get to that stage, that understanding, it took you some time to get to that understanding. You've had
Mhm.
to go through a journey, and you've had to go through a very hard lesson through your whole life before you even got to this stage to understand that. And now you're at a stage where, yes, I could pretty much doing the same thing, but slightly in different ways to have a bigger outreach. So with that said, what have you changed to have a bigger outreach? What physically have you done, or what have you planned or planning to make that further outreach? What has happened?
One of the first things that I had to do, which was not a physical thing, but it was having a stronger sense of what I'm responsible for the
Okay.
other person and
Mhm.
what I'm not. I'm responsible for holding space for them and for providing information that they can use as a catalyst for change. If they don't act on it, I'm not endlessly on tap
Mm,
for them if they are not at a point in their lives where they can't make the changes. And so I had to learn not to overextend myself that way, because
mm,
I did feel that with people who were really struggling and
mm,
who weren't ready to move from,
mm.
because a lot of the sexual stuff is about moving from really bad habits and behaviors and victim patterns
Yes.
into self-actualization and self-empowerment. Some people just aren't there yet. They're not ready in their lives,
Mm,
and they never will be. And
mm,
so if I give one person all of my energy and attention and I'm fully drained, I'm missing out on doing more with people who actually are ready. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing is, right now I'm moving away from doing in-person one-on-one sessions, like kind of on an hourly basis, or, somebody will buy a package and I'll see them for the duration of that package,
yeah.
to having online programs, which is actually how I met you. Is I was looking for an online platform and
Mhm.
we were involved in the same platform. So I'm very grateful to have met you. And using that medium to reach a broader audience. So
Mm,
I'm putting what I know, um, the knowledge that I have now, into courses and classes, so I can teach, so people can just take a course. It's there for them forever if they buy something, and teaching other professionals how to work with sexuality. A lot of people in my community, the hypnotherapy community, they're approached by people who are looking for help with their sex life and they don't know how.
yeah.
So I have a few skill sets, a few pieces of information which are really unique based on my experience.
Mm.
So that's something that I can teach other professionals.
Yeah, and what you say actually again rings true, because it's a situation where um, I have the same thing with clients myself. There are some clients that just aren't ready, and when I'm working with them, they're not ready to do what they need to do um, for them to make the sacrifices they need to make. Uh,
Mhm,
you can give them the blueprint, you can give them the advice, but just like any business, um, some people aren't ready, and you've just got to let them go and just let them come back whenever that may be the case, if that is the case. Community, I hear you talking about community and the impact lives. Community is a big, massive not problem, but a big, massive thing at the moment, where we can extend with our skill set within a community, right? And that's a big thing at the moment. So I'm glad that you're within communities, etc. So those two things together allows us to help so much more people. Once you alleviate the people that you can't help, and you get closer to the people within communities that you can help, and that's how we gain a bigger reach. This is how I help my clients. This is how you help your clients, which is a great thing. So what's your plan beyond what you've just said that you intend to help? What's your next stage on helping more people, or are you going to change things up a little, or what's the situation there?
I'm really in a building process right now, so I have a lot to do before I get to, okay, what's next? Like, I have a couple of years of putting my what's in my brain
Uh-huh.
into actual courses. It takes me a lot, like, they're really, really full, so it takes me a long time to make a course, and I'm going to be making separate courses. That is the primary thing. I've just started, well, just restarted my podcast, and hopefully they're like, I've actually gotten a lot of clients from my old podcast. They listen to me and they're like, "Oh, I want that person to help me with my problem. She sounds like she knows what she's doing." So podcast, articles, being interactive that way, building community, and letting, like, the two websites that I built are meant to be hubs. No nonsense, no bullshit. Most of the information about there on sexuality is clickbait. It's either AI written, or it's really, really, really shallow bullshit clickbait, which is usually meant to sell something.
Hmm.
Of course, I'm trying to sell my things as well. They're not addressing the problem though, and they're not hitting the problem at deeper levels. So I want my websites to be resources for people, that people can go and know that it's real information,
Hmm.
not deviating you some way, or preying on people's insecurities or pain points and not giving them what they're actually looking for.
Yeah, and totally. And I like the way you hit a problem because you lived the problem in the past. You know exactly what you need to do or how to help the individual because everybody is an individual and has an individual problem. And
Yeah, I've been well, one of the other reasons for this, like, I feel it's extremely important to me. I feel like I have to do this, is what I've seen over the years is people pop up as sexuality experts,
mhm,
and they've got huge social marketing profiles, but they're Instagram stars who've decided to say, "Now I'm a sex expert, do these things," and these things are all like, they're all the same things. They're all very shallow. They're not hitting the deeper level problems, and I feel like there needs to be something deeper. And I'm not saying everybody who works with sexuality is like that. I'm saying I've seen these people become very successful marketers
yeah.
without being really very knowledgeable about sexuality. So I'd like to sort of counteract that a bit with some deeper information. Maybe not the flash of the Instagram star, but I've been working with it for 20 years. I know what people are going through and I know what their bodies are doing, and I'm familiar with what the solutions are.
Yeah, it's not only you in the sensuality kind of category. It's happening all over social media. There's a lot of people there. They say they're digital marketers or they're this and they're that and they don't have a clue. They just got a very large profile,
Yeah.
and and then they just put it out there, and then they're making money, right? So unfortunately, and especially with the event with AI, um, with the amount of content being pushed out there, it's making people look more professional, more knowledgeable than they really are.
Yeah.
And I think once once you're online, you can hide to a certain extent. And when you hide, you can have a fake persona. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah. I've
There's a
noticed.
lot of that going on. Before, you have brick and mortar, you go into a shop, open up the door, you face to face, one to one with the person. It was less likely you can be fake about something. You look around the shop. If it looks a bit untidy, you're not touching my body if you can't even keep everything clean. But on social media, it's a bit more difficult, to find out who's for real and who's not.
Mhm.
And I'm glad these podcasts actually can help to alleviate that, because number one, it helps to listen to the person, yeah, hear their tone. You can check them out with all the details and etc. And it's one of the things that actually people can get a feel whether someone could potentially be for real or for not. And when you've got to do something on the real, you've got to do it live. It's a bit more difficult to hide, is it not?
Oh, yes, it is.
So I really think this is really good. Right now, business. You've had to do quite a few things to get to this stage, and you're still climbing the ladder, but you're very successful. And I said to you, a success, and we spoke earlier on before, success doesn't mean you've made 1 billion or 1 million. Success means that you've got through your goals. You've got through the hoops, and you've done that really well. Give me three things to give to the listeners that's very important. I would say one of them is consistency. What's the other two things that's very important for success?
I think you need to know and understand yourself and your skill set very, very well, and understand what you wanna be doing in your business. So, I've taken a lot of business courses and followed a lot of business people, and whenever I do, I feel very inspired. I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna do that stuff. I'm gonna be like that person." I'm not like that person at all. I'm really myself, and when I try to step outside of my strengths, I fucking suck and I fail.
Yeah,
And what I do fail. And so knowing what I'm really good at, and then if I want to take my business to a better level or a higher level or expand it in some way, I need to outsource some of these things to people who are really good at what they're doing
yeah,
and not try to do it myself. Because
that's right.
let's just say, like, to put it on a really simple way, I could see 4 clients and make a major impact, or 10 clients.
Yeah,
Or I can spend a whole month trying to learn a thing that I'm
yeah,
never gonna be good at. Like, for example, tech,
yeah,
I'm the worst. I'm the worst
yeah,
at tech. I hate it.
yeah,
And, doing it takes my energy, it takes my joy out of life. It makes me feel like, "Ugh, I can't do this." So rather than, try to save money or try to do it myself, just let somebody else do it.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you, and what I will also say is that we watch a lot of people that very, that make millions and whatever. But what I keep on saying to clients and people that are curious and how to make money, how to be successful, is to say, well, they were successful because they followed the path that worked for them. You know, just because that person was successful in crypto doesn't mean you can do that because you have not a clue to do with, you know, crypto and you have no passion for it. So you have to find out what resonates for you, your skill set, what resonates for
And,
you.
and with that, just this is part of the same
Yeah.
subject is how you actually want to live your life.
Yeah.
How do you really want to ideally be living your day-to-day life? Because it's all very well to want, as a person who sees clients, there's like, oh, have a thriving practice, be booked 6 months out, booked
Mm,
5 days a week with so many clients. I don't want to see that many people. I'm a massive introvert. I do not want to be seeing clients all the time. I
mm,
don't care how much money I make because I can't do it. I would burn out. And so that was a real eye opener. Before, when I was struggling to get clients, that was sort of the ideal. I was like, yeah, I need more clients. I need more clients. And then I realized I don't actually want more clients.
mm,
Somebody else may thrive in a thriving practice, somebody who has a different personality, somebody
mhm,
who's less of an introvert or who wants to have more social interaction. But if you are an introvert, you don't want to be running a business where you're in the spotlight all the time, always talking, always having this energy output constantly, because you're not going to have any time or energy for your family or for the things that you want to do. So
mm,
which was actually a struggle that I found as I became more successful. I was so drained. I just like had nothing left for my partner.
mm, mm.
Like I wanted to go and be by myself for the rest of the night. I don't want to hang out with him.
Totally.
So that it's really important to know yourself and how you want to be living and then structure your business so that you can have that kind of lifestyle.
Mm. And what I also would suggest is when you're making a plan, is don't start from the beginning, start from the end. What does that mean? Start from
Yeah.
your goal and work backwards. Because
Mhm.
if you start from the beginning and you say, I want to make £1 million, that £1 million could be made in so many different ways. But if you start from your goal, which is, I don't really want to be having more than 2 hours a week with my clients, well, then what can I do with that? And then work backwards, you will get to exactly what you should be doing. Does that make sense, Freja?
It
Does
does
that?
make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to work it, listeners. Always work from your goal backwards. That's unusual what people will say. They usually will say work forward and then work to your goal. But for me, that's the wrong way of doing it. You can easily get a plan much faster if you work from your goal backwards. Um,
Uh, And I think it's important to find somebody who you can model.
yeah,
I don't mean copy exactly, but find somebody who's doing it the way that you want to be doing it.
yeah.
Because if you latch on to the wrong mentor or the wrong teacher,
Mhm,
you're not going to be able to emulate them and
mhm,
you're going to feel like you suck. And
mhm.
you're going to feel like a failure and you're like, all these people are better than me. I'm the only one who's not able to do this.
Totally.
It's because you're modeling the wrong person and you need to find somebody who is in alignment with your strengths that is also doing it so that you can feel like, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah, totally. And that makes total sense. That having the right people within your lives, I think, is really important. So not only your mentor is very, very important, but it's also the people, the people that stand next to you, right? And with whether that's your family or your friends. And this is the life lesson in business and personal life. I think it's important having the right people around you. Did you find that also as you were climbing up through positivity when things were improving in your life? Did you find the people changed around you?
Very much so. So if you were to say, what's the third thing, I would have said maintaining a really strong single-minded focus of the kind of life that you want to have, but that also includes people. So for example, I think a lot of entrepreneurs do have ADHD. And it's easy to become excited at the next thing, or, oh, I can do this too, and I can do that too.
Mhm.
But the more you spread yourself out with different activities, yes, it's important to stay interested in life. I have my fingers everywhere. But when you are being distracted by the next shiny object, or the next thing you want to bring into your business, or the next service, the other thing that you want to do or include, just think, is this going to detract from my ultimate goal, or is it going to add to it? And if it's going to pull you away from it, then if you need to say, I'll do that later, or I'll do that in a few years, or I'll do that after I achieve this thing,
Mhm.
but you have to stay focused. And with people, it's the same thing. In your inner circle, like, I imagine the people in my life as operating within concentric circles. So I have the inner circle, which is very small, and it's the people that I trust most, I'm most open with, that know me 100%, me and all of my weirdnesses. I don't have to mask, I don't have to show up and pretend to be anything for them, and I trust them implicitly. There's a
Mhm.
next layer out, there's a next layer out, and then there's a huge layer, like on Facebook, what, you have 5,000 friends.
Yeah.
And there are people who I like, I care for,
Mhm.
but, you know, they're removed from me. I'm
Mm.
not gonna take their call in the middle of the night and get out of bed and listen to them talk about their problems. I'm just not going to, because you can't do that for everybody.
Mm.
So, deter how much you love somebody does not determine how much energy you put into them, in my opinion. Because there are people in our families and there are people in our friendship circles that are not supportive. They're like little vampires. They're very negative. They complain. They're victims. And so, for somebody who wants to put a lot of energy into creating a life that they want,
Uh-huh.
you need to set boundaries about how much you're willing to give to that person. Maybe you're willing to listen to your sister for one Saturday a month, or something like that. If she's that kind of person who is just like draining and it's all negative and it's all her problems and everybody sucks and the world is terrible, how much do you want to give of yourself to that kind of person? You can
Mm.
love her, you can be there for her, but you don't necessarily want to be vibing with that type of energy.
Mm.
So again, staying focused on what you want and setting boundaries around everything in your life, including people.
Mm. Mm. And I've noticed that the boundaries that you also put in your business, which we spoke about earlier on, trust is very important. Now, when it comes to trust, when you have your clients, and obviously you deal with sensitive subjects, sexual subjects, how do you make them feel confident that you can be trusted? You have a natural way about you, so that comes across. But what things as a process do you put in place that shows trust? And what kind of questions do you ask them to put you in a position to know where you're going to start with them to help them? Does that make sense?
First of all, I'm very aware of my skill set and its limitations. So I know what I can do and I know what I can't do for somebody. And when I am initially interacting with somebody, they've usually, because it is a subject that a lot of people are very uncomfortable about, they've already researched the heck out of me. They've listened to my podcast, they've read my articles, they've looked at my online profile, they've probably seen my Facebook and the stupid memes that I post. They already have a sense of me,
Mm.
and there's a little bit of a trust factor there. When they talk to me, I am so comfortable with the subject that I have a container of trust and comfort that they can step into, and I hold that space for them.
Mm.
And they also know that, so I do a lot of teaching by telling stories and giving examples. And a lot of the examples are actually other clients or people in my lives, people in my life. I always change details.
So give us a for instance. That's interesting. Just give us a short for instance when it comes to the story.
For instance, if I had a particular client who had a problem with his marriage, And the problem was actually him, and he perceived the problem as being his wife. I may talk about that example and share how his perception was that she was denying him intimacy. She was withholding, even that term, withholding sex, the sex that he thought that he wanted. She was frigid. She wasn't into sex at all. And the reality of the circumstance was that he was a narcissist. He was abusive emotionally and mentally, and she was responding to his treatment of her. Now, I think being now I have personal experience with narcissists, but I think that when you are emotionally abused, you're not interested in sex with that person.
Without a doubt.
So
Yeah.
his perception was that he was being mistreated by her, by her withholding of the sex. And I can give that example without revealing any detail about who the person is. So people's, even though like I have a vast amount of knowledge that comes from working with people, like their information is safe with me. It has to be. It has to be. Otherwise, I wouldn't be continuing to see people. I'd be that person that nobody wants to talk to. And in other circumstances, like a very common one would be a woman who feels victimized by the sex that she's having with her partner. And she has this story that she tells about men and the way that men are in bed and how they're selfish and how they're brutish and how they don't care. And then upon more research, what I find out is that she does not say a word. She's acquiescent. She goes along with things, pretends she's enjoying it. She fakes it. He has no clue that she's sitting there hating every moment of it. He kind of feels maybe there's something off, but he's just desperate for the intimacy. And so the problem is not that he's a brute. Again, in the circumstance, I'm not saying this is every circumstance. I'm saying, for example, the problem is that she's not speaking up. She's not advocating for herself. She has no idea what she likes sexually. She has no idea how to say, hey, this is what I actually want you to do to me. Because most men are willing to do what you ask them to. Most like healthy men want nothing more than to please their partners in bed. All of them do. Like that is their driving force. They're not there to use and abuse us. So I share a lot of stories, and if somebody tells me a problem, I can share them a story that's in alignment with their problem to help them get a little more perspective about what's going on.
What I find I'm interested about, how is it that you're able to tell exactly that their perception is off? So if you've not got two of them in front of you where they can bounce off each other and you say, no, that's not how it is. But if you have one of them there, how is it you're able to tell if their perception's not quite right?
I can tell less if there's just one, but I'm really good at questioning people. Okay. And if anybody wants to be better at questioning people, there's a book called Clean Language. And it teaches you how to question people in depth to find out what is really going on.
Okay.
Like what's really going on. But I know enough about the patterns of human interaction that if I ask enough questions about the dynamic and what's going on, I can get a sense of it. Of course, I'm going to get less with one person than if I have two. And I'm quite clear, I'm not a marital therapist. I'm not going to do marriage therapy. But what I can do is help you improve your sexual dynamics if that's the problem. Sometimes it's just one person that thinks they have a problem, and then we figure that out. But for example, a lot of men think that they'll come in and they'll say, I have erectile dysfunction. I think it's a physical problem. Something's wrong with me. And upon questioning them the right way, I find out their penis works just fine. However, the environment that they're creating when they have sex is not conducive to their erections. That's not erectile dysfunction. That's your penis functioning perfectly well for the environment that you're giving it. Same with women that say, or if they say, oh, my wife is frigid. Oh, I don't have a libido. Well, what's actually going on in the environment? Are you nurturing your sex drive, or are all of the factors in your sex life shutting you down and closing you down? So a lot of times the problem isn't a problem, it's a symptom of the environment. And you have to learn how to create a nurturing environment. And because I've been doing this for long enough and I've seen enough and I've researched enough, I can get that when I talk to somebody.
So what you're seeing is basically pattern recognition. You see the patterns. And I suppose what I would say is with your ADHD, they tend to see patterns. Do
I've
you?
discovered that's a big thing for me.
Yeah.
I see patterns very well and very easily.
And so, and the thing is, I've got certain things with me. I mean, I'm dyslexic amongst other things, and because the reason why I'm strong in what I do as a business is because I see patterns. So when I question people, I hear and see patterns. So what I'm hearing from you is, even though you're speaking to one person, you're hearing and seeing patterns.
Yeah.
And because other people will come along and they're scratching their heads and thinking, well, how did you work that out? You can see a pattern. And sometimes you don't know why you can see it, but you can see it.
Mhm.
Um, and your strength lies, even though you have this so-called disability, and I say so-called because I think it's a superpower, to be honest, because I think that's one of the things that make you a natural in what you do is because you have the ADHD and anything else that goes with that. That gives you that skill set to be able to see these patterns and home in, and also be trusted at the same time because you have a natural way about you, because you naturally see things off the cusp. How do you
There was sorry, what was that?
how do you feel about that?
Oh, I agree with you. I feel like my skill set is a superpower for certain things. Now, if you wanna take my skill set and apply it to keeping my house immaculate,
Mm,
no,
yeah,
it's a disability.
yeah, I
If
get
you wanna take it to doing what I do for professionally, it's a superpower. But, people will say something to me, and I will immediately have a sense of, "Oh, it's this," and there's no reason I should know that. Even if they're saying something completely
that's right.
different, I'm like, "Oh, here it is." So what I do is I take that what do you wanna call it? A bubble of intuition, I
Yeah,
set it aside,
yeah.
and I wait for
The
it to
evidence,
either come true
the evidence.
based on gathering more information, because I
That's
do have
right.
to gather enough information. I can't just take that and be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm psychic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
know what your problem is before
I
you
get
even
you.
told me anything." That's not fair to clients. So but I will say, though, it's usually on point.
Yeah. No, very much so, and I can see that. I can see that in you, and it's a great thing, right? When you can help somebody,
Yeah.
and they think, "How did you do that so quickly?" Because you get that too, didn't it?
Mhm.
How did you figure that out within so much time? And
Yeah.
you get that a lot of the time, and I get that also. And people scratch their head and just don't understand. Um, and that's great the way you actually break things down for your clients and get to the crux of it, be them together or be them individual. So you're taking your experience from the past, you went through difficulties, and you took that experience plus with your so-called disability, put it all together with your experience of studying, and actually you're bloody gifted at what you do.
Thank you.
That's what it comes down to, because I'm sure your clients say amazing things about you over and over again because of that.
Yeah, it's really nice, actually. If I ever wanted an ego boost, I could just go and, think about what my clients say.
And the thing is, it hasn't been easy though. You know, we're talking about it now and we can smile about it now.
Mhm.
But how difficult has it been, that journey for you to get to this successful stage, as much as you're still going through gates? How difficult or easy has that been as a long term, the journey?
I would say that it's been really hard and not in a, "Oh, poor me" way, but, you know, there's a lot of rock bottoms. You know, it's not like this, it's not like this, it's like, "Doo, doo."
And what she's showing us is the up and the down and the up and down. There's bumps in those roads, right?
Yeah, it's not a direct lineup, that's for sure.
And I think we can safely say it's not just bumps in the road, but it's like a mountain. Sometimes you hit a mountain and you think that mountain is never going to stop. It just goes on and then goes on, and then bam, down again, and go, oh, there's light against the tunnel. But then it happens again. And that's what you're describing. You're describing it can get like difficult, really difficult, where you almost give up. But there's always a way out. It's just the patience, and it's just getting that grit. And what else would you say? Determination.
Knowing knowing, what your values are, because your values, meaning like your core values,
Hmm.
and whether that's in alignment with how you want to do your business. And I'll just give an example. When COVID happened, so I had a primarily face-to-face in-person business, and in Canada we had really big lockdowns, and you weren't even supposed to go outside. Like you weren't supposed to walk on the sidewalk. Like all the trails were closed. You weren't supposed to see people. You weren't supposed to work. And had I didn't know what was going on. You know, I didn't know, well, what is this thing? Is it what they're saying it is? Is it something else? I had no idea. So I played it safe. And I only secretly, but like I didn't have a backup.
Mm.
So I didn't have somebody to pay my rent during these months when I wasn't allowed to work. I didn't have backup money. I didn't have, and I thought, oh my God, am I going to, like, am I going to become homeless? Am
Mm.
I going to, I'm like, maybe I have to get a job. So those months where I wasn't working, now I say not working, I had a little group of clients who I had known since I've been here, like core people who I knew did not have a huge social interaction, and I felt safe having them come in. So they kind of saved my ass. I wouldn't have been able to make it if it weren't for them. But during that time period, I was applying for jobs, like applying and applying and applying and applying, and I didn't get anything. And I was like, what the fuck? Am I so basically I'm kind of unemployable because I've been self-employed for so long, like 20 years.
Yeah.
And at in those moments, I was so desperate for security. I would have been like, you know what? I just want somebody to pay. I just want to know that there's money coming in.
Mm.
I don't care what I have to do. Like I applied for jobs at mines. I was like, I just want somebody to to pay me, and all I have to do is show up. I don't want to have to think about how I'm going to survive.
Yeah.
And that was one of the hardest times, is because I really was not sure if I would come out of this in the end. And I'm really glad that I didn't get a job. I probably would have stuck with it, and then I would not have been living what I should be living, because I
Yeah.
really feel this is a calling. It's who I am, and what I'm supposed to do in the world. I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing,
I hear
is
that.
bringing love. And so um knowing that about myself helps me stay with it even when I'm not getting the results that I want soon enough, or when things get hard. And I think that if you don't have somebody funding your entrepreneurship,
Mm.
like a lot of people, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but some people who are self-employed, they're married to somebody who pays all the bills. So
Yeah.
there isn't the same sort of desperation and urgency
Yeah.
as if there is no backup, or they have parents who are funding their life, or who
Yeah.
bought them a house or things like that.
Yeah.
I'm paying rent, I'm paying all my own bills, it's all me, and there isn't a backup. So if something were to happen, like, I have to make it happen, and I'm glad that I didn't get a job.
Yeah, I mean, and it's very easy
Now
once you're in a situation where, as you said, whether you got parents there, whether you got the job there, etc., it's very hard to become independent again, because you can do the 9 to 5 thing, and then after 5 you don't have to think about anything. You can take the break. While when you're an entrepreneur, when you're working for yourself, there are times when you can take a break all day, but more times than not, it's sporadic, all over the place. Your hours are all over the place, or can be, and that can be quite difficult. While at the same time, it gives you the freedom to be independent and do what you know. So it's six of one and half of the other. I suppose you've got to be a certain personality or a certain type of person to be able to live a life like this. Would you say, or not?
yeah, I think you have to be able to be uncomfortable with be comfortable with uncertainty,
Yeah,
and be comfortable with discomfort.
yeah,
Because with that amount of uncertainty, you know what? It's nice. I stay in bed in the morning and my dog comes in and snuggles me. And then if I want to, we'll go out for a walk in the forest. And then I'll get to my computer at 2 o'clock. And it's like, oh, what a life you have. And I'm like, yeah, but sometimes I'm still working on my computer at 3 a.m. in the morning.
yeah.
So it's really, I can do it. I have a lot of flexibility to do what I want, but it still has to get done.
And when it comes to faith, you obviously have this faith. Is there some underpinning thing within your life that carries you and somehow makes you just gather all that momentum that you need to get out there? Now, that could be spiritualism, that could be a religion, that could be someone in your life, that could be a grandfather that's always said a particular thing and you've always remembered it. Is there just that underlining thing that always gets you out of that hole, that pushes you out and keeps you going through? Or is it simply just the way you live your life?
I would call myself a spiritual person rather than a religious person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have answers, but I'm trying to live life in integrity. So the stronger I get, the more integrity I have. And integrity for me is what's inside is the same as what's outside. If I'm presenting a friendly face to you, I'm feeling that inside.
I get you.
And when I was younger and having a lot of suicidal ideation and going through some really difficult times, something I came across was Abraham Hicks.
Okay.
They're a channel. They channel spiritual information.
Okay.
And I didn't have therapy at that point. I didn't have anybody like sitting in my corner helping me or standing up for me. I was isolated for a lot of my life. Well, I don't mean I didn't have friends, but for example, but not people I would talk to about that. So I moved away. I moved down to New York when I was a teenager to go be with my husband. And then I moved to Germany. And there was I was away from any kind of support system.
Uh-huh.
And when I was in my darkest times, I would put these audios on like YouTube or like recordings that I had downloaded on MP3. And they were sort of positive spirituality stuff about law of attraction, about energy, about, improving your vibrations. And so when I'm struggling, I'm aware logically, I'm like, I'm just at a really low vibration right now, and I need to access a higher vibe and bring myself up.
Wow.
So it's more like I acknowledge that I'm feeling like shit, but I know that I will have a completely different perspective if I climb the ladder of vibration up there. That it's sunny. I just can't access it right now because of what I'm like. So the work is not trying to get out of the depression or trying to get out of negative thinking or the struggle. The work is getting yourself into a better state internally,
Mm-hmm.
because when you are, then the world around you looks better.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is different. So I think that is what, it's not like
Yeah.
I'm not relentlessly positive. I'm
No,
an
no.
emotional person, and just knowing how to change my state is what helps me maintain a generally good life and good feeling.
Yeah, because I tend to ask this with a lot of people that come on the podcast to me, because what I've noticed is that there is usually, and always has been up to this point, an underlying pinning thing that, just like you use to spin round as a reference of what you need to do to get out of a hole. And I just want to just reiterate to the listeners is that there is usually a faith system, no matter what that is. It could be anything. It could be spiritualism. It could be a religion. It could be someone in your life. But there is something that always keeps you rooted and gets you out of that hole. And I believe faith, having some sort of faith system. I'm a Buddhist myself, and I'm not saying Buddhism is the way to go. It is for me, but it may not be for anybody else. But some type of faith system, I think it's really important, not only for your personal life, but for your business. Because just like your business can, have you in a roller coaster, so does your personal life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some kind of faith system needs to be there. And I can see with you talking about you have that faith there, knowing something's not quite right. I need to get back up there because of A, B, and C. And that's what keeps you going. You've gone through a lot, and I can tell a huge amount, but at the same time, that's kept you rooted in the right direction. So
I
what?
just want to add to that.
Yeah, go on, do that.
That I really, really love. And it is, it's by a guy named Daryl Anka, I believe. And it's circumstances don't matter. only state of being matters.
Mm.
And matter is two things. It's matter, like, is it important, but also mattering, it creates matter. So if you tend to your state of being, your internal state of peace, joy, happiness, love, primarily, like, I'm very much a love person. If you can cultivate a core state of love, you can move through any circumstance and be fine.
Mm.
So even if things are if things are difficult, tend to your state of being and they'll get better.
Okay, that sounds interesting. That's state of love. Give us an example under that quote that you was talking about. What gives me some kind of understanding? State of love under what?
Well, I do see love. Love can be an action. When
Okay.
people think of love, sometimes they think of it as a feeling that they have provoked by somebody else. I love that person. I don't love that person. But if you are in a state of love, a core state of love, if you're coming from love and you're looking through the lens of love or joy or peace or something like that,
Mm-hmm,
then what you have access to is a completely different perspective than if you are in a state of frustration or
mm-hmm,
shame
mm-hmm,
or grief or apathy or anger.
mm-hmm.
Because if I were to look at you through a state of love, I'm looking with compassion.
Yeah.
I'm looking with, like, it's an indulgent lens. Now you're no longer nitpicking what people are doing and criticizing them. You're seeking understanding.
Interesting.
You're having caring for them. And I always operate through that lens of love for my clients, which means I can hold space for them, even if they're assholes or they're problematic or they're dishonest or there's something about them. I'm holding them in a space of compassion and looking through the lens of love. In my relationship, if I am feeling, if I'm not really in a good state, if I'm a little frustrated or burnt out, then when I see my partner, naturally what happens is sort of criticisms or things that are annoying.
Mm-hmm.
But if I go into a state of love, I only see the most wonderful things about him. And he's, the most wonderful person I've ever met.
Mm.
So it helps me, 'cause I like to feel good. I don't like feeling shitty. I have very low tolerance for feeling shitty. So to look through your business, to look through the world, things could be falling apart around you, but if you are able to, like, it's temporary.
Mm.
Every moment is temporary. So if you can cultivate that beautiful state, whether you want to call it love or whether you want it to be joy or peace or whatever, and then look through that lens, then you're not finding fault, despair. You're able to be compassionate with yourself and with other people. And that's pretty much what can get you through anything.
All right, let's talk about the practicalities of that. So you're very good looking through the lens of love, especially if you've got someone that you've met that's an arsehole. It doesn't have to be a client. It could be just someone you've just met, in a bar, etc. How is it that you're able, what is it that you do to flip that switch that you can go from you're an arsehole and then you look through the lens of love? That's not something that's easy to do. It may be easier for you to do now, but what is it that makes you go from one state to another, seeing them in a positive light? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot easier in business than it is in your personal life, of course, because in
Mm,
business you can compartmentalize and, I'm here to do a service for them.
mhm,
So
mhm,
my personal feelings or my personal judgments about how they live their life or how they behave
mm,
are they're not relevant. What's
edu
important is me being able to serve them the way that they need.
yes.
In my personal life, I just know from experience, look, I'm a woman. I have a hormonal monthly cycle. I
Mhm,
see how differently I view my partner throughout the month.
yeah.
Like, there's a couple of days, like, he'll start bringing me more treats. He knows, he keeps track of my cycle. When he starts treating me a certain way, I'm like, you know it's coming, don't you? And we laugh about it. But it's really true that different things in your life affect how you react and how you respond to things. And I think it's important to respond and to temper reacting. So the thing with being in a state of love, it's almost just, it's not disassociated. That's the wrong term. But we get really wrapped up in our dramas.
Mm,
Humans do. Really wrapped up. It's like it's so real. It's so intense. We get sucked into Facebook conversations and we're so angry.
yeah.
And none of that is good for us. And if you can step back a little bit, tend to your state of being, and then look at what other people are doing, again, through a more compassionate lens. Like, think about your child. If you have a child and this little person is struggling their way through life and they're screaming or they throw their food on the ground, you don't join them in that tantrum.
Mm,
You're holding a more mature state, a loving stance, and you guide them.
yeah.
So, as a professional and as somebody who like wants to live a good life, I'm not here to get sucked into people's drama. I'm here to keep myself happy and to spread some of that to other people as well.
Mm, mm. That's great how you do that. It's quite significant how you do that too. It's a good skill set. Once again, another skill set to your bow, right?
But if you're in traffic and something really stupid happens in front of you and you have a flare up
Yeah.
of road rage in that moment, maybe there's now, if you're a Buddhist, maybe this doesn't happen to you. But a lot of people, that rage will flare up, and that person in front of them, they're swearing at them, they're saying all these kinds of things, and it's a horrible feeling. It's really cruel and it's
Mm,
nasty. That might be a nice little old lady who just baked her grandchildren cookies,
mm,
or who just lost her husband and she's kind of wobbly on the road because she's in grief or she's scared or something. What, you're going to swear at her and get angry? Have some compassion. You don't know what people are going through.
mm,
So that's what I mean by, okay, tend to your state first. Find a state that you actually want to be in. Who do you want to be? And then move through the world that way
mm.
rather than reacting to everything that happens.
That sounds cool, for sure. But what a wonderful journey you've gone through, and it's just amazing what you do with your clients. It's even more amazing what you've done with your life because it's taking you time to get there, and we're still learning, right? There's still things that you need
Oh,
to do
yeah.
in your life. It's just the way it goes. But I'm really glad you shared your journey with us because some things are sore to talk about, and we do appreciate that. Um, what how can people contact you? So if somebody wants to actually approach you and may need your advice, how do they come along and contact you? How do they get through to?
I would go to www.thesensualist.ca. And from there are different categories. So you can go to my website for men, hisperformance.com, my website for women, hersensuality.com, or my website for professionals, because I have a website where I teach professionals how to work with sexuality. So somewhere in there will be a context, or you can just send me a note, like on the contact me, and we'll go from there.
And listeners, what I'll do is I'll make sure I leave the details below. All right. So you'll be able to contact her. She'll have all the details there. And trust me, if there's any situation that you need regarding with the skill set she has, she is the right person for you. So please, please contact her, even if it's just to ask for advice and not take it further. And Freja, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for spending the time with us and giving us the difficult answers sometimes that you've given us. And we really do appreciate you.
Thanks so much for having me on. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
And in the meantime, listeners, we say sayonara and have a wonderful day.